Hello student, let's try to understand a problem on the life process student. What are the questions here you see student? Why is diffusion insufficient to meet the oxygen requirement of multicellular organism? The answer, in multicellular organism, all the cells are not in direct contact with the surrounding environment. So if they are not in the surrounding environment directly, so diffusion cannot take place student. And second, simple diffusion will not meet the oxygen requirement of all the cells of the multicellular oxygen. In multicellular oxygen, more requirement is there student for the no more requirement is there of the oxygen, but diffusion provide only little oxygen. That is why this is not sufficient. What criteria do we use to decide whether something is alive? Movement, respiration, nutrition, growth, development. These are the four criteria there, student. Whether movement is there, respiration is there, nutrition is there, growth and development. These criteria decide something is life. What are the outside raw material used by organism? What are outside raw material? Outside raw material are used by an organism for obtaining energy which needed for maintenance the process to prevent the damage and breakdown. Here saying the question, what are outside raw material used by organism? Outside raw material used by organism for obtaining energy which needed for maintenance process to prevent the damage and breakdown. Up in the case of human, they use the glucose student. This is the outside raw material. If you are talking about human, and if you are plants, if you are talking about a student, they are using CO2, H2O student. So they prepare that is C6H12O6, O6 plus oxygen student in the photosynthesis. Next one you see, what process would you consider essential for maintaining life? I consider life process like the respiration, nutrition, transpiration, excretion, etc. as essential for maintaining life. What are the difference between autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition? Autotrophic, it is a mode of nutrition in which organisms prepare their own food. Heterotrophic, it is mode of nutrition in which organisms depend on others for their food. All green plants and some bacteria exhibit this type of nutrition. All animals and fungi exhibit this type of nutrition. Where do plants get each of the raw material required for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, water from the soil, light energy from the sun. So these three things only required, and they are taking it from the two things from the soil, like CO2 they are taking from the atmosphere, water from the soil, light energy from the sun. What is the role of the acid in our stomach? Hydrochloric acid produced by gastric gland of stomach create an acidic medium in the stomach, which is necessary for the activation of enzyme pepsin. Okay, another. So firstly, it is that released by the no gastric gland student. Gastric gland. It is released by gastric gland in the stomach, and what it is doing is student, it is necessary for the activation of enzyme pepsin. It also helps in killing green germs that hinder along with the food. What is the function of digestive enzyme? What is the function of digestive enzyme? The food material we consume are very complex in nature. The food material we consume are very complex in nature. That is why digestive enzyme helps to break down these complex molecules into a smaller molecule so that they can absorb by the cell, like amylase, lipase, pepsin, trypsin, etc. How is the small intestine designed to absorb the digested food? How is the small intestine designed to absorb the digested food? The inner lining of a small intestine has a large number of fingers like projection called villi. These villi provide a large surface area for absorption of digested food. The villi are richly supplied with the blood vessels. These blood vessels carry the absorbed food for to each and every cell of the body. The villi are richly supplied with the blood vessel. These blood vessels carry the absorbed food to each and every cells of the body. Now, got it, student? Because they are having finger like projections to increase the surface area. Okay, they are increasing the surface area. And villi are richly supplied with the blood vessels, student. This blood vessel carry the absorbed food to each and every cell of the body. This is there. Question number 10. What advantage over an aquatic organism does a terrestrial organism has with regard to obtaining oxygen for respiration? Right. What advantage over an aquatic organism does a terrestrial organism have with regard to obtaining oxygen for respiration? So advantage, if you are seeing for terrestrial organism, the amount of oxygen in environment is less, but aquatic organism, the amount of oxygen is water is less. So that they required more breathing rate. In case of the aquatic, they required, see, aquatic organism often dissolve oxygen in water, whereas terrestrial take oxygen in the form of air directly. The aquatic organism has to utilize more energy to extract sufficient oxygen from water, as the volume of oxygen is quite low in the water. Whereas terrestrial organisms relatively need less energy to obtain energy from surrounding, as the amount of oxygen is very high in the atmosphere. Hence, it is advantage for terrestrial organism with regard to obtaining oxygen for the respiration. So easily they can acquire the oxygen, student, in case of the terrestrial organism, because the amount of oxygen is more, students. Now let us see the what are the different way what are the different way in which glucose oxidized to provide the energy in various organisms. What are the different way in which the glucose is oxidized to provide energy in various organisms? In the first phase of respiration, glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate. This is common in all kind of organism. In all kind of respiration, the rate, the fate of pyruvic acid different in different organisms. In the first phase of respiration, glucose is broken down into two molecules, that is pyruvate. This is common for all the organisms. So this is glucose is broken down in the pyruvate in cytoplasm. The fate of pyruvate acid depend on different organism. So in the yeast, student, absence of oxygen, ethanol, carbon dioxide. In our muscle, lack of oxygen is there, lactic acid and energy. And presence of oxygen, student, carbon dioxide, water and energy. This is the mitochondria. How are the oxygen and carbon dioxide transported in the human being? Transport of oxygen. The oxygen of the air in the lungs combined with the hemoglobin present in the blood from oxyhemoglobin and carries to the cell. Transport of CO2. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water, hence it is more soluble in water. Hence it is mostly transported from the body tissue in the dissolved form through the blood plasma to the lungs. Okay. How are the lung designed in the human beings to maximize the area of exchange of the gases? How are the lung designed? In the lungs, the air passes windpipe divides into smaller tubes called the bronchi, which in turn provide and form the bronchioles. The bronchioles terminate in balloon-like structure called alveoli, each lung containing 300 to 350 millions of alveoli. The alveoli present in the lungs provide the maximum surface for the exchange of the gases. The alveoli present in the lungs provide maximum surface for the exchange of gas. The alveoli have very tiny wall and contain an extensive network of blood vessels to filtrate exchange of gases. The alveoli have very thin walls and contain extensive network of blood vessels to facilitate change of gases. So these are the these are alveoli. Bronchioles split into the alveoli, bronchus. Okay. What are the components of the transport system in human being? What are the function of these components? The transport system in human being consists of, that is, heart, blood, and blood vessels. Heart. Heart is the pumping organ to push and pull the blood around the body. Heart receives the oxygenated blood from the various part of the body. It sends this impure blood to lung for respiration. After receiving pure blood from the lungs, it sends this oxygenated blood throughout the body. What is the another one is the blood. It is a fluid connective tissue which consists of plasma, RBC, WBC, and blood platelets. Plasma transport food, hormones, CO2, and nitrogenous waste in dissolved form. RBC transport respiratory gases. WBC protect the body from the infection, and platelets prevent the loss of blood at the time of injury, forming the blood clots. So keep in mind, student, the blood fluid connective tissue. It is consist of plasma, RBC, WBC. They are saying plasma transport food, hormones, CO2, nitrogenous waste in dissolved form. RBC transport respiratory gases. WBC protect body from the infection, and platelets prevent the loss of blood at the time of injury. Blood vessels. There is a network of blood vessels which contains arteries, veins, capillaries. They help in the circulation of blood through the body. Why is it necessary to separate the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in the mammal's blood? It is necessary to separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood to maintain the sufficient supply of oxygen in the body. Write notes on the component of the transport system in highly organized plant. The main component of transport system in highly organized plants are xylem and phloem. Xylem. It consists of the blood vessels. It consists of vessels and tracheids. It consists of vessels and tracheids. It helps to conduct water and mineral from the soil to the leaves. It helps to conduct water and minerals from soil to leaves. So this is the it is conducting the water, student. Phloem. It consists of sieve tube and companion cell. It helps to transport food material from the leaves to various part of the plant. This process is called translocation. How are the water and mineral transported in the plant? In xylem tissue, vessels of tracheids of the root stem and leaf are the interconnected to form continuous system of the water connecting channels, reaching all part of the plants. At the root, cell is contact with the soil, actively take up the ions. This create difference in the concentration of these ions between the roots and the soil. Water therefore moves into the root from the soil, eliminate this difference. This means that there is the steady movement of water into root xylem, creating column of water that is steadily pushed upward. How is the food transported in the plant? The product of metabolic process, particularly photosynthesis, are moved from the leaf where they are formed to other part of the plant. How is the food transported? The product of metabolic process, particularly photosynthesis, are moved from the leaves where they are formed to form the part of the plant. The transport of soluble product of photosynthesis is called translocation, and it occurs in the part of vascular tissue known as phloem. Beside the product of photosynthesis, the phloem transport amino acid and other substance. These substances are especially delivered to the storage organ of the root, fruits, and seed, and placed in the sieve tube with the help of adjacent companion cell both in upward and downward directions. Describe the structure and functioning of nephron. Describe the structure and functioning of nephron. Nephron is the filtration unit of kidney. It consists of tubules which is connected with the collecting duct at one end of the cup-shaped structure at the other end. This cup-shaped structure is called Bowman capsule. Every Bowman capsule contains a cluster of capillaries called the glomerulus. The blood vessels enter into the glomerulus through the different arterioles of renal arteries and leave it through the different arterioles. The tubular portion consists of proximal convoluted tubules, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubules, and collecting duct. So, Browman capsule is there, bronchus of the renal veil, that is glomerulus, tubules part of the nephron, collecting duct, renal arteries, bronchus of renal arteries. Function of nephron: filtration of the blood takes place in the Bowman capsule from the capillaries of the glomerulus. Reabsorption: as the filtrate follows along the tube, useful substances such as glucose, amino acid, salt, and water selectively reabsorb into the blood capillaries surrounding the nephron tubules. Urine formation: the filtrate which remains after the absorption of the is called urine. Urine contains dissolved nitrogenous waste, urea, uric acid, excess salt, and water. What are the method used by plant to get rid of excretory product? Some waste products are stored in the leaves. They are removed as the leaf fall off. Some waste products such as resins and gums are stored, especially a non-functional old xylem. Some waste products such as the tannin, resin, gums are stored in the bark, thereby removed peeling off. Plants secrete some waste product through the root into the soil around them. Plants also get rid of excess water through the transpiration. How is the amount of urine produced regulated? The reabsorption of the urine produced Bowman capsule takes place in the tubular portion. When filtrate reaches the tubular portion, the epithelial cell of the tubules reabsorb several substances, water and salt, in the selective manner and transport them back blood into blood. Thus, the amount of urine produced is regulated. The amount of urine also regulates the volume, regulated by the volume of the blood that is filtered and the amount of the antidiuretic hormones ADH. The amount of urine also regulated by volume of the blood that is filtered and the amount of antidiuretic hormones ADH. How are the fat digested in our body? Where does this process takes place? Bile salt breaks the large globule of the fat into smaller globules, increasing the efficiency of enzyme success, that is emulsification. An enzyme called lipase present in the intestinal juice finally break down the fat into fatty acid and glycerol. This process takes place in the small intestine. What is saliva? What is the role of saliva in the digestion of food? Saliva is watery fluid secreted by salivary gland. Saliva moistens the food and helps the movement of the blood around the mouth while chewing. Enzyme present in the saliva, salivary amylase, ptyalin, breaks down the starch into sugar. What are the necessary conditions for autotrophic nutrition? What are its byproducts? Necessary condition for autotrophic nutrition: presence of chlorophyll, provision of water, availability of sufficient sunlight to provide energy, sufficient water, sufficient supply of carbon dioxide. The byproduct autotrophic nutrition is carbohydrate, oxygen, and water. What are the different between aerobic and anaerobic respiration? Name organisms that use the aerobic mode of respiration and anaerobic. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. In the glucose, it's simply oxidized. Large amount of energy, 686 kilocalories is released, that is 36 ATP molecule as per glucose. It takes place in all higher organism. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. In the glucose molecule is incompletely broken down. A small amount of energy, 56 kilocalories, that is 2 ATP molecule per glucose molecule. It takes place in lower organism like yeast, muscle cells of man. The organism which perform anaerobic mode of respiration like yeast, bacteria, parasite like the tapeworm, miscarriage, etc. How are the alveoli designed to maximize the exchange of gases? Alveoli are the thin wall balloons-like structure present in the lungs. The balloon-like structure of alveoli increases this surface area. The walls of alveoli are richly supplied with the network of the blood vessels, which helps to maximize the exchange of gases. What would be the consequence of deficiency of hemoglobin in our body? If the hemoglobin is deficient in our in blood, its oxygen carrying capacity decreases. It results in the deficiency of oxygen in the body. This condition leads to breathlessness and anemia. Describe the double circulation in human being. What is necessary? In human being, the blood passes through the heart twice a circulation and it is called double circulation. This kind of circulation in which blood circulates twice through the heart is called the double circulation. Double circulation of blood, that is systemic circulation and pulmonary circulation. Systemic circulation. In this circulation, oxygen blood from the left atrium is pumped into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, blood is pumped into the systemic aorta. This aorta supplied the blood to various organisms in the body. The oxygenated blood from the various organisms is collected by inferior and superior vena cava and finally into right atrium. Pulmonary circulation. In this circulation, deoxygenated blood from the right atrium to send to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, blood pump into the lungs. In the lungs, the blood oxygenated and oxygenated blood are returned to the left atrium by pulmonary vein. From the left atrium, the oxygenated blood is again transported to various body parts through aorta. Necessary importance of the double circulation. Double circulation used to prevent deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood. It ensures the high efficient supply of oxygen to the cell of the human. What are the difference between transport of material xylem and phloem? So xylem conduct water and dissolved mineral from the root to leaf to other part. Phloem conducts prepared food material from the leaf to other part of the plant in dissolved form. In xylem, transport of material takes place through the vessel and tracheids, which are dead see-through. In phloem, transport of material takes place in the sieve tubes with the help of the companion cell, which are living. In xylem, upward movement of the water and dissolved material is mainly achieved by transpiration pool. In phloem, translocation of food and other substances takes place both in upward and downward dog. Movement of water is achieved by the simple physical forces. There is no expenditures of energy, so ATP molecule are not required. The translocation in the phloem is in an active process and requirement of energy. This energy takes place from ATP. Compare the function in the lungs, nephron, and kidney with the respect of their structure. So, see, alveoli is there. Alveoli are the structural and functional unit of the lungs. Alveolus has the thin wall balloon-like structure. Surface is fine and delicate. Alveoli are supplied with the extensive networks of the thin wall vessel, that is capillaries for exchange of gases. Alveoli create surface area for the diffusion of O2 from air to blood and CO2 from blood to air. Nephron are the structural and functional unit of kidney excretory system. Nephron has thin-walled cup-shaped structure and attached with a thin-walled tube. Bowman capsule is supplied with the cluster of capillaries, a least glomerulus for the filtration. A network of blood vessels is present around the tubular part of nephron for absence of uh, for reabsorption of the useful substance. Nephron also increase the surface area for filtration of the blood and reabsorption of useful substance and water for filtrate and leaving behind the urine. So this is the all about the exercise question of the life process. Thank you.